Everyone loves a good countdown. There's Spotify Wrapped, the best books of the year lists, and even your favorite student excuse. So, as season one of the What and Who of EDU wraps up, I just couldn't resist creating my own list. Welcome back to the What and Who of EDU, where we bring you insights from the leading educators and innovators who are shaping the future of teaching and learning. I'm Marissa Bluestone, and before season 2 launches, I just had to capture the moments that stuck with me. Picking 10 was borderline impossible, but here they are. And if any of these moments hit home, we have all the episodes linked below in the show notes, and they're ready to binge during your next commute or prep period. We kicked off our Top 10 series with an episode that shared some thoughtful ways we can help students to overcome anxiety. You know, the students who faced everything from "I'm just bad at math" syndrome to "I swear my keyboard is judging me" paralysis. Dr. Jennifer Ripley Stueckle's strategy of intentionally making small mistakes is equal parts genius and chaos gremlin energy. The teaching professor and non-majors biology program director at West Virginia University engineers imperfection as a pedagogical.
The students know who I am. They know my background. They see me make mistakes. Sometimes I'll even make mistakes on purpose just so that they can see that I'm a human and it's okay to make mistakes. Things I'll do to make a mistake is I'll do a clicker question and I'll say, "Oh, the answer is C," just like I automatically knew what it is. And then I'll look at it and I'll look at their faces and I'll be like, "Am I wrong? Did I mess up?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I think it's B." And I'll like, "Well, hold on, let me look." And I'll look and I'll be like, "What? I think it's B? Oh." And then they'll tell me, I'm like, "Oh, you're totally right. I messed up. I mess up sometimes. It's okay. I thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it." And I'll do something silly like that. And I think some of them know that I did that on purpose, but I want them to understand that we're learning and mistakes happen and it's okay. And then during class time is the time to learn from those mistakes so we can work together.
So she's normalizing mistakes before students even have the chance to stress over them. And some of her students absolutely know she's doing it on purpose. And that is precisely the point. Speaking of professors who show up as actual humans, economics professor of instruction at the University of South Florida, Dr. Erica Martinez, proves that sometimes the simplest gestures can hit the hardest. She learns every single student's name, and it makes a notable difference.
Belonging really means that students understand that they have space to contribute, they have value in this environment. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the best thing that I do to create a sense of belonging in my classroom is learn all of my students' names. And I do that in a class of 18, and I'll do it up to when I have classes of 65 students. 95% of them are going to come to class regularly. And I learn all of their names within the first 3 weeks of the semester. And I use their names regularly, which also helps me learn them within the first 3 weeks of the semester. It's something that I know some of my colleagues do, but a lot of my colleagues don't do. And I believe that it goes a very long way in helping them see that I value them and I see them. I can say hi to them in the classroom, also in the hallway, in the student union when I run into them. I ran into a student of mine from 3 years ago at Publix the other week, and I screamed his name from across the parking lot. So I think it is very important and goes probably further than we would expect. Now, before I had children, it was easier to remember their names because I had less things on my mind. But I find ways like I'll ask them not to switch seats in the classroom a lot. So the first day I'll tell them, "I'm going to try to learn your names within 3 weeks. I'm not as good as it as I was 10 years ago, Please pick your favorite seat the next time you come in and try to sit more or less in the same seat. And I promise you I'll do my best. I might make a mistake, but that's my goal over the next 3 weeks or so.
Her Publix parking lot story remains the emotional thesis of the belonging episode. When students feel seen, the learning doesn't just stay in the classroom. It follows them wherever they go. And episode 4 from Me to We, 10 strategies to build belonging in your class, is packed with great tips, just like it. Speaking of things students don't believe they can do, Julie Moore, Senior Online Academic Advisor and first-year composition instructor for Eastern University, reminds us that learning is about more than successfully querying the bots. While AI can offer a tempting shortcut, especially in an asynchronous class where students can feel a bit adrift, it's so important that students own their own stories.
Anytime I do catch a student who's used AI to write the whole paper or maybe an entire paragraph or several paragraphs of a paper, the number one thing I start with is, you know what, you have a voice and I want to hear what you have to say, not what AI has to say. You have worth and value. Your voice matters. And I want to hear, for instance, the first paper that I assign in English 100 is literacy narrative. And I'm shocked that every time I teach that class, that there are a couple students that just ask AI to write it for them. And I'm like, but it's your story. What is it about how you've been conditioned and taught, and what messages have you internalized that make you think your story actually does not matter? And that this artificial intelligence can do a better job telling your story than you can, because artificial intelligence can't do a better job telling your story than you can. You're the only one who can tell your story. So don't cede control of that to this, anonymous, very impersonal tool.
Her message: you're human. Your voice matters. AI cannot tell your story better than you. Reframes writing, not just as an assignment, but as an act of self-worth. And in an episode about AI hacks and guardrails, this one hit particularly hard. Now, I love the research-driven episodes, and Marcy Bauman's True Believer Energy made episode 8 about belonging and metacognition one of our most powerful. Here's the thing about metacognition. Students don't call it that. To them, it can represent worry, overwhelm, and uncertainty about whether college is even achievable for them. The Vice President of Learning Science and Insights at Macmillan Learning explains exactly what she learned from these students.
Students would often talk to us a lot about, like, it's just hard to know from this one class how I'm actually going to achieve my goal of graduating from college. I'm a freshman or I'm a sophomore. I've only got 30 credits in. How can I know that I'm going to get the necessary amount of credits in the next 3 to 4 years in order to be able to graduate? Is graduation even my goal anymore? Maybe I just want to stop at 2 years and then go and pursue something else. And so students talk to us a lot about feeling ambivalent about what their goals were and how they were going to accomplish them. And what we quickly recognized is that their goals, oftentimes that they were talking to us about, were academic, but they were influenced by personal factors. Like, I am working full time. I'm also going to classes. I can't even figure out when I'm going to study. I need digital access to, or like a mobile friendly access to my resources, because I'm trying to fit in reading a textbook while I'm sitting in a carpool line or while I'm working and I'm trying to like quietly read behind a desk. And so we very quickly gleaned from the students that the metacognition for them was more focused on, this is where I'm at now, and I need to figure out how to accomplish my goals.
Students don't say that they're struggling with their metacognition. They say, I don't know if I can do this, or how will I get through 4 years of college, or when am I supposed to study? Metacognition isn't academic jargon. It's a survival tactic for the chaos of being human while trying to learn. But what if we could take the survival mode out of learning? Dr. Kristen Monroe's approach in episode 11 does exactly that. She gives students unlimited attempts with no penalties on assignments. Turns out, when you remove the fear of failing, something very interesting happens.
One of the things that I've learned is that it is really important to stimulate learning instead of truncating learning. And so I give my students unlimited attempts with no penalties on automatically graded assignments, and then the opportunity to revise one revision for hand graded assignments. I find that this removes the fear of failure and encourages problem solving. I think that if you give a student one attempt on an assignment, the challenge is that they're not incentivized to go back and redo it. But if you give them those multiple attempts, then they have more of an incentive to keep going with it, and they're less likely to just get frustrated and give up.
The Education Research Associate at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign reminds us that by removing the fear of losing points, she removes the fear of trying. And in her class, students can try, fail, revise, and try again without ever losing points or momentum. Episode 12 offered advice for teachers just starting out, and it was exceptionally hard to choose just one favorite for this episode. Dr. Mike May reminded us to teach like it's still hard for you. Dr. Kendra Thomas gave us a matrix to help us decide what had the most impact. And Betsy Langness, professor of psychology and department head at Jefferson Community and Technical College, delivered the permission slip of the year by reminding us that we just have to be one day smarter.
One thing that I was told when I first started out, and I was totally stressed about being an instructor because I went from a counselor position to a full-time teaching position in psychology, is they told me, you just have to be one day smarter. So don't stress about it. It's going to be okay. Show your personality through little tidbits while you're explaining some of the content, and start really small with technology. Just try one thing, and when you get that down, you can add more to your plate, but don't try to add too many things at once. And always ask for feedback. That is one of the biggest things that I think has helped my classes become more successful.
She reframed teaching as iterative, human, and doable. And for just one brief moment, I may have considered writing one day smarter backwards on my forehead so I could see it in the mirror every morning. And how could I do a top 10 episode without a bingo bonus? Because Mary Gurley just hit us with the reality check we all needed.
The number one thing I would say to any instructor who's starting out is go read What the Best College Teachers Do by Ken Bain. Go right now and read it. And if you can't do that, which is what I strongly recommend, it is a very short read, go put into ChatGPT, do the best college teachers do by Ken Bain, one-page summary, and focus very hard on that information as you start your journey. You need to remember it is a privilege and an honor to be in front of students every day, whether it's behind the computer or in front of the classroom. And I think that is very important and something that is critically overlooked as I see social media boards, Reddit boards, this concept or attitude among instructors where I see it's lacking kindness and remembering the privilege and the honor that it is to be in front of students, to change lives, to have a real platform every day is, I'm getting chills right now talking about it. It is something that you do not need to lose focus on.
The psychology instructor at Gaston College was getting chills talking about it. I'm getting chills hearing it, and you might even be getting chills right now. And that's the power of remembering why we do this. In episode 15, Jennifer Duncan said something profound. If I clear the ramp, everyone can walk up it. Instead of treating accessibility as something for students with accommodations, she reframes it as good teaching. Full stop. Her example that building the ramp first benefits everyone captures universal design in a way that's vivid, memorable, and utterly practical.
Good teaching strategies are good teaching strategies for everybody. So something simple like turning on closed captioning in a video I create, I may initially have thought of that as only students who have hearing issues will want that. But what I find is some students like to be able to see that, or some students may be watching on the train and need to put in their earphones or can't have sound, and that's going to help them. If I add tags to an image, that's going to help somebody who may have had to walk out of the room, and now I've described that image for them in another way. And the same thing with including lots of different types of assignments. So instead of just delivering my content via a video or text on a page, if I can find multiple ways to deliver that content, then I will hit multiple students at what works for them. So I'm not an expert on the universal design for learning in any way, but I love the cartoon that they often use in those workshops where it shows a bunch of people standing outside of a house. It's snowing, and the person says, as soon as I clear the steps, I'll handle the handicapped ramp. And the person says, but if you clear the ramp, everybody can walk up it. So I try to think of my teaching from that. If I clear the ramp, then that makes it better for everybody, not just a student with a particular accommodation need.
Accessibility is about everyone, not just the students with the letter from the disability office. Clear the ramp, everyone walks up it. Clear the stairs, and you've just decided who gets in and who doesn't. Episode 17 asked how we measure learning beyond grades. Dr. Starr Sinclair, assistant professor of psychology at Florida Gulf Coast University, had the answer. Watch what students do when they leave. Do they teach their roommate? Do they train their puppy with operant conditioning? That's when you know it's stuck.
We can measure learning by looking at how students transfer that learning, whether it's they transfer it to someone else, whether they are transferring skills or things they've learned to beyond the classroom to other aspects of, whether it's another class, whether it's something in their life, whether it's something on their job. That to me, honestly, is the best measure of learning. Is because, academic achievement, okay, yes, a grade on a test or an assignment or whatever, that's all well and good. But I'm not teaching, and I'm not an educator because I just want students to be able to get A's on tests, right? Or write a really great paper. I'm an educator because I want them to take something from this process that we've engaged in together and use it, right? Have it be of some use to them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's academically, personally, professionally, or whatever. I love hearing when students are like, oh, remember that thing we talked about in class? I went home and showed my roommates that, or I went home and I was talking about this with my mom over the weekend. I love that. I love that they're talking about how learning works and conditioning, class conditioning, operant conditioning. And as students, oh, I got a new puppy and I actually was trying to use the operant conditioning principle to train it to go outside or to not make a mess. And to me is, okay, when students are able to show that they can see the connection from the content in the classroom to anywhere else outside of it, that gets me super hyped and super excited because that's exactly what it should be, right? To me, transferable skills, transferable knowledge, anything where they can demonstrate that they can transfer it and apply it somewhere else, that to me is a great measure of learning.
Learning is both human and durable, and a test score cannot always measure it. This one was a mic drop for anyone still clinging to grades as the only way to measure learning. In our 3-part series about the psychology of psychology with Macmillan Learning authors Dr. Dave Myers and June Gruber, I had 2 favorite moments with Dr. Gruber. The first was when she shared that emotional health isn't about maximizing happiness, but about navigating a full internal ecosystem, with happiness being just one part of it. The next was when she told me about my new favorite thing to do when I need a moment, and that's an all walk.
There is some fascinating recent research that I do think would be a game changer. And it's something that I try to bring into my classroom in the past couple of years because I think it can really relate to students' everyday experiences. And that's the research on the science of awe, and that's AWE. I always say it's not AWW. And this is the experience of wonder, amazement, seeing the world as something bigger than yourself. So the idea behind awe is that there's this natural human emotion we have of wonder, of reverence, of a sense of feeling in the presence of something bigger than ourselves. So imagine that it could be out in nature and you're seeing this vast landscape of mountains or the ocean, or at night below a sky and seeing all the constellations. It could also be, you go to a concert or you go see some beautiful art. You see a speech by someone you just think is an incredible human being. There's these opportunities we all have to feel in the presence of something wonderful, something amazing. And in fact, there's these pretty simple, 10-minute walks you can take in your own. And it's not just doing it as a sort of recreational activity. It's actually something that can profoundly shape people's mental health. So you find people that go on these brief 10, 15-minute awe walks, and there's these, again, freely available scripts you can find online. We've integrated these into some of the student activities we do in our textbook. But when people go out and do this and students do this, there's this amazing data showing they feel less stressed, less depressed. And in fact, people also feel like a smaller sense of self, that there's a bigger world than me. And I think that brings actually a lot of comfort and relief to students. But it's this wonderful new science on something that can be, in addition to other mental health strategies we're taking to help students feel better and less stressed.
10 minutes is all it takes. And there are some free scripts available you can use for your awe walk that I'll link to in the show notes. I can think of no better way to end this top 10 than with one of the most comforting, scientifically grounded reminders we heard all year. Dr. Dave Myers gave us the psychological equivalent of a weighted blanket, and it's exactly what you'd want to hear on one of your worst teaching days.
One thing psychology does is really help me think in terms of evidence rather than anecdote when understanding human experience. But if I had to pick one concept, it might be the concept of resilience. Bad and good things happen to us all, and they happen to me too. And when bad things happen, something gets rejected that I had a lot of hopes in, a child is suffering, whatever. I feel a heaviness, I feel a weight, but I also know that it's not going to last forever. The half-life of that negative emotion is going to be relatively short. And I guess that maybe helps me not be depressed, because if you're depressed and something bad happens, you tend to think it's going to go on forever. There's nothing I can do about it. It's all my fault. And so understanding our capacity for resilience helps me when bad things happen and I'm really down, at least to know in the back of my mind, I'm not going to be down forever.
So the next time you're spiraling at 2 a.m. over something that went wrong, remember Dave's words. The feeling won't last forever, and your brain already knows how to recover. And that'll do it for my personal top 10 this year. These moments capture something essential about teaching and learning, that it's human and constantly evolving, that our best teaching happens when we embrace imperfection, build genuine connections, and remember that learning doesn't stop at the classroom door. If any of this made you want to completely restructure your spring semester, I'm not saying do it, but I'm not saying don't. But do definitely share this with someone who gets it. And if you want more of these conversations, please subscribe where you're listening to the podcast. It helps us to create content that actually matters. And check out the bios of our featured educators and links to all of the episodes we mentioned down in the show notes. Season 2 launches in January 2026, and we're diving even deeper. In addition to your favorite educators, we have some new voices. some fresh perspectives, and other things that make you go, This is Marissa from the What and Who of EDU, and I'll see you next year.